on now. Okay, we're live. Welcome everyone to another town hall. And get some notes up on screen here and we'll get started. Okay. All right. Don't have much at the top here. No action items currently that we're tracking. We're not currently updating the metric spreadsheet, though I did share that with Adam so that they might incorporate that into the program that Wildmont is running with now, or some different version of that, but I shared with him what we have historically. The e-NABLE fund balance is about the same as it has been. Of course, we will see that drop a bit soon, since the first quarterly payment for this program will be going out. And let's see, a couple of posts from the hub. Christoph posted about, oh, we have this one in here twice. Okay, yeah, because I had already put it in. Christoph shared a post about a bike adapter that he made. So this is for something he made for a 2-year-old boy. He made this using flexible filament, and he said it just attaches to the handlebars with zip ties. And there's a picture of it, and looks really nice. One of the things that I liked in seeing this is looking at the design of the cuff. It seems to me this isn't being attached to the forearm per se. It's just kind of sitting in there. So if, the kid was to, fall off the bike or something, he's not going to get stuck. It's just, arm just comes out. So from a safety point of view, it looks like a smart design to me. But it gives enough stability that he'd be able to, I think operate a bike using the other hand to assist. So
really nice.
Pretty cool. And he shared the design in with a Fusion link, which means you can download it in pretty much any format you want. You can get the original CAD files. You can, let's see here. I'm not actually, did they move the download link or did he not? Document browser, maybe? So I'm used to seeing a download link up in the top and I'm not seeing that. So I wonder if he just shared this as a view only. Markup, measure, explode, model browser. Yeah, I'm not seeing any export options. Would somebody like to take a follow-up to post on this and ask him to make sure that this is shared in a way that people can download it, or maybe share a version that can be downloaded?
I can do
Sure.
that. Yeah.
Okay, thanks,
okay.
Sarah.
Hi, Sarah.
Okay, so let's see, that's the same one. Julie,
And then this wasn't a hub post, but Julie with her student project asked me, and this is something we've run into before, but what was the best way to find recipients for her whole class? So if anyone has,
we get this a lot, so let me pull up I have a template for this in Desk because we get this inquiry so much. Let me pull that up as a starting point. Let's see. I don't remember what I called it. Request, how to find recipients for e-NABLE devices. So I basically explained that our abilities right now in this area are somewhat lacking. Unfortunately, we are in the process of implementing a new matching platform to connect makers with those needing devices. And we'll talk about that later because I do have a volunteer on that now. It's not yet complete. We're also working on outreach efforts that will hopefully increase awareness of our capabilities in a limb different community. But at this time,
there, by the way.
Good. Okay, another update coming on that. But at this time, we do have a surplus of makers and a shortage of identified recipients. And then I give some options of what they can do in the meanwhile. And I say, well, you can work on networking, reach out to local hospitals, rehabilitation centers, prosthetic clinics, help raise awareness about e-NABLE and services we provide. You can also connect with other organizations that serve people with limb differences. You can use social media to help spread the word and identify people that might be able to benefit from our devices that way. Outreach events, you can organize events in your local community to help raise awareness about e-NABLE, maybe a hand assembly workshop, that kind of thing, or just a presentation about e-NABLE. And we do have things, assets, slides, things like that we could share that might help with that. Collaborate with local schools and universities. You can help both to educate the students in those schools, but also there's a good chance that you'll find one or more people in those schools that has a limb difference that might be able to use a device. Online communities, connect with online communities, people with limb differences. And another one that I didn't list here that I've heard others mention in the past is, religious organizations. If you're if you go to church or a synagogue or anything like that, that can be a good place to kind of share the word, maybe give a little talk about the volunteer work that you do here. And chances are somebody in that community might have a limb difference or know somebody that has a limb difference. So those are some of the things that we're suggesting for now. It is kind of a do-it-yourself approach until we get a better program available. But Adam, is this a good time to, sorry, go ahead, John.
Sorry to interrupt. I've had the experience of presenting e-NABLE in a classroom.
Yep.
And then asking kids, do they know anyone who's got a hand or an arm, like that? And often the kids do know, since,
Yep.
they're aware of everyone in the school. The notion of chapter leaders being encouraged to give these helpful presentations to classrooms is in general a really good service they can provide in a way of boasting what they can do. And it might well uncover the people they're looking for.
Yeah, and you and I have both given those presentations in classrooms, John. So my guess is we both have a slide deck we've used that we could share, and that would make it easier for people to do that, with some changes maybe. But I think we give them some starting materials, right?
Yep.
Yeah, I think if we had some standard materials and like a standard script, I think that would help a lot of folks who maybe aren't, coming at this from an educational background. I think we could also consider approaching other disciplines and not just in the high school space. But
that's a good idea, Adam. And the stuff that I've used, I think would be a starting point, but I don't have it set up in a way like I don't have notes on all this, speaker notes and all that. What might make more sense is for me to give the slides I've used to you and let your team, work on getting it to where it could be a template.
That would be great.
I can do the same thing. I think that's really a good plan.
Okay, so let me put that down for us, Jeremy and John. Send e-NABLE presentation templates.
Well, and how cool would it be to have leaders of these maker spaces with their older students, travel to other schools, and the students themselves can share their own work and talk about what's been successful and what hasn't, and that would be awesome. It'd also be highly marketable and good for fundraising.
Absolutely. I think that's great. Okay. So we've all got action items on that, Jeremy and John, to send our presentations to you, Adam, and then you'll work on preparing that into a template with speaker notes. That'll be a big help for those. Excellent. Okay. And then Adam, were you saying something else as well?
Well, I was saying something else. So our very first shipment of hands has arrived in Pakistan. And it has been forwarded to Afghanistan. I believe it should arrive at some point in the next couple of days. So it cleared the first leg without any trouble. The shipping costs were a little high, I will say. So I'm going to continue to look at other avenues, but they actually were.
What's a little high? What can you give us an estimate?
Including there was the initial shipping fee, which is somewhere in the neighborhood of, I believe, $360. And then there was a tariff or some kind of additional fee after arriving in Pakistan of $50. I think was the conversion from the ruples. Oh shoot, man, I don't remember exactly what the currency is there.
Tariff. 1R.
I think it's TARIFF.
That's it. Thank you. You use that all the time. I should know.
No. I don't. It's just one of those words that always stuck in my head because it's unusual. But it's not a huge hurdle, and I think it's a really good impetus for amping up our fundraising to see if we could.
I also want to remind you, Adam, that we for a long time now have had the community's voted authority for approving up to $1,000 in expenses in these meetings. So,
however, I just don't where our funds currently, and I don't mean to cut you off, Jeremy. I'm sorry.
All right.
Just where our fund currently sits, that's not sustainable for what we'd be talking about for sending. If everybody wanted to start doing this, I don't think we'd be able to maintain that for more than a couple of months.
So far we've sent one shipment, so let's worry about that problem when it becomes a problem.
That's fair. That's fair. I only bring it up because I'm currently exploring some other options to piggyback on other aid organizations. Doctors Without Borders is one, and some possible other routes that can get to Pakistan more cheaply. This was sent via DHL, so not the cheapest option anyway. It also came from Canada, so I don't know if it might be cheaper coming from the States or elsewhere. So more to come on that. I've got my friends in DC and my friends in California who are also really interested in engaging in this. I think that after they arrive, I've been in communication with my prosthetist friend in Kabul, and he's just, he's champing at the bit, waiting to get them. And then I'm going to reach out to Marshall, one of our newer members who actually speaks, I want to say it's Farsi. He's a vet who was in the region for a long time and is really interested in helping here. And I think he could be a really great go-between. And also, I'd love to have someone with a little bit more technical know-how who's been doing this for a long time. Someone who isn't, currently overburdened would be ideal, but someone who can, speak to like filament types and differences more eloquently than I can would be great to have on this call, because I'd like to kind of troubleshoot anything that he might be experiencing, Dr. Ramin, to see if we can make sure that what they're receiving is what they actually need.
When is that call?
Haven't scheduled it yet.
Okay.
Where I'm going to wait for him to actually get his hands on the hands, and then we'll go from there.
Let me know if you need me to participate. I can do that.
That would be amazing, but again, I don't want to fill your plate too much.
Generally single meetings are not too big a problem for me. It's more of these ongoing tasks that have to be done that are the challenge. So if you need me for a meeting, that's no problem.
Sounds good.
Okay.
But yeah, really excited. It's I've been working on this for the better part of a year.
Yeah, that's wonderful.
Arrive,
and congratulations. Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, so back up here to where we were. So we talked about the question from Julie. Sarah, will you be able to maybe share this bit of our video recording with her as way of an answer?
Yes, I will follow up with her.
Excellent, thank you. Let's see, in terms of our recurring events, I didn't have a chance to check. So what's coming up next? What's our next meeting? Is it going to be the chapter leaders? Anyone know? Maybe we should just pop over to the calendar and take a look at what we have going on. So we are at the 7th.
Oh, sorry, I was muted. I haven't sent out the calendar yet. I was going to do that today, but it's updated. The first event is chapter leaders on the 17th. And then the second event is bionic design on the 21st. Vivek will not be available to host, so I'm hosting and still looking for a guest. So if anyone has any ideas.
It looks like we might have some duplicate items on here.
No, they're not duplicates. I just left them on there because in case Tanara adds a health meeting, it's easier for me to take something that's already there and update it than it is to make a new event if I delete them. So
okay, because this one on the 14th, it's called e-NABLE.
I know that I left it in there in case Tanara wanted me to put in a health meeting. Because it's easier for me to use something that's already there. I
would suggest, it's maybe I could go through that with you. It's really not hard to create a new event, but right now it makes it look, because of the description, it makes it look like this is the chapter meeting, and it's also on the following Monday, so it's a little confusing.
Okay, I'll just delete them. But 17th is chapter leaders, 21st is bionic design, 28th is education and new members. I'm also hosting that one. I'm only getting away messages from Ian. So, and Brent Hollers is going to present on curriculum development for e-NABLE. And that's the program.
Got it. Okay. So chapter leaders meeting is the next one. Yeah, John.
So I assume I'm the moderator for chapter leaders.
Yeah.
And Adam, forgive me, but have you told your story at a chapter leaders meeting? I think the question is, can you come to that meeting and If you can, we could
That's the
publicize it.
Monday, the 17th, Adam, at, is that 11 a.m. Eastern, John? Or is that
Yes,
Central? It's 11 a.m. Eastern? Okay.
Let me see, because that's currently open.
okay.
Wait a second. No, John, I don't think it is because it's showing the town halls at 10 a.m., which is Central Time. That's my time. So this must be 11 a.m. Central. Does that need to get
It's
moved?
12 Eastern.
It is 12 Eastern. Okay. So 12 Eastern on Monday, Adam, if you're available.
Also currently open.
Okay. Excellent. Okay.
And Adam, if you have a few slides, I think it's a great opportunity for you to lay out for chapter leaders what is about to unfold.
Yeah, and just FYI, I was just waiting for the assigned contract.
Yeah.
And I am going to send out blasts in the hub on Monday morning to just fill people in. I'm also creating the dedicated Wildmont account for my use.
Great.
To try to keep, you know, business and outreach work kind of separate, so that people know who to direct questions to. I'm going to be doing things like posting polls and providing access to different spaces through the Wildmont account. And I really want to kind of focus communication where it belongs there. But that'll begin on Monday. And yeah, I've got other things about Wildmont specifically, but you know, no rush.
Okay.
We can address those naturally.
And so Sarah, I think often sends an email to all of the chapter leaders reminding them about this meeting. Sarah, if you do that, you can mention this new approved thing and that Adam Jennings himself will be coming to discuss this initiative.
Well, and we should probably
absolutely.
make this sort of a primary focus in the next newsletter, kind of outlining the program and next steps and sort of how people can get involved, anything like that. That would be a good opportunity to help get the word out.
Yep.
Happy to help.
All right, so Adam, moving into our discussion topics here, let's start with your program and anything that you care to share other than what you already have about.
Yeah.
Here.
Well, I will. I'll go ahead and get the ball. As I mentioned, we're going to really officially kick this off on Monday. I'll start with a little post in the hub detailing what we are going to be generally doing. I'm also going to create a Wildmont space on the hub, so that we can have a little bit more focused discussion. Hopefully, we'll have some success in drawing people there. What I want to do is have a kind of suggestions box, because really what we're going to be doing near the beginning is crowdsourcing suggestions from folks about what they'd like to see or struggles they had when they first joined on, or why they're using e-NABLE and what they're getting out of it day to day. I'd like to get a much better sense than I currently have for generally what the typical user's relationship is with e-NABLE, whether it's you know, something they hop into every now and then, whether it's something that's kind of day to day on their mind, and really how we can kind of capitalize on those different approaches and different kinds of relationships that we have to maybe better funnel folks to more focused resources. So from there, we're going to be doing our what we call our base camp exercise. That's where Jason and I will be taking a look at our site metrics. We're going to be conducting some group and one-on-one interviews with members. I'll be reaching out to folks about scheduling time for those. We can also just conduct them asynchronously via email if need be. But I really enjoy the in-person conversations because I feel like I can get a little bit more out of those. But that will be an attempt to try to get a lot of the same kind of information that's like the suggestion box would get. But I think that it could be kind of eye-opening in terms of how we can maybe leverage this tool that has been built up for the last decade in a way that's maybe a little bit more focused and a little bit more impactful. And then speaking of impact, you know, we I think have rightly so kept the you know, a single focus or single mission away from e-NABLE's banner. I don't think that we have any like one thing that people are rallying around, which I think can be good. because it allows people to really use this as a source for creativity. It's an open source site where people are able to communicate on, improving designs. But I also think that there should be at least some aspect of the community that allows for that focus work, which is, why I joined on as the outreach coordinator, and why I think Wildmont is here to try to get a little bit more tread on the wheels. So to that end, part of this initial exercise will be attempting to get a sense for what people really want to do that's not currently being done, or at least do more effectively and efficiently. So to have a kind of like 2023 or 2024 vision and mission for what e-NABLE will be hoping to accomplish. Now, obviously, that's not set in stone. If that's something that someone here is allergic to, the idea of having some kind of like rallying mission or vision, I don't want to push folks in the direction they don't want to go. But I think having that kind of spearhead focus would be something that would make fundraising a whole heck of a lot easier. It would make it a lot easier to bring together assets and collateral to do something like a digital marketing campaign, to acquire corporate sponsorships, to point agencies who deliver grant services to a single page to show exactly what it is we're doing. So that's generally the approach that we're going to be taking, trying to fashion at least a corner of what e-NABLE does into a kind of spearhead to more clearly and succinctly communicate what our what the funds that we would be raising would be accomplishing, really, is what we're trying to do. But yeah, we will be providing weekly hours summaries, or what we've been up to this week, because we're not technically on the clock yet. We are now that the contract is signed, but I have been reaching out to a couple of influencers in the amputee community. I think that we have some potential for some collaborations with folks who are fairly popular on platforms like TikTok and Twitter. There's even a person who posts on Reddit and has quite a lot of followers who shows really cool stuff.
Now we have Threads.
Yeah, and then, man, I got to get into that. I saw a couple of things about Threads, and I don't know, man. I'm sure that this is Meta snapping up all those Twitter engineers, that Musk is upset about.
Trying to, yeah.
But yeah, that's really interesting. I've never liked Twitter. I joined the moment it became publicly available, like whatever 12 years ago, and immediately lost interest. But I don't know. This looks like it might actually be more more like what Twitter was supposed to be.
Well, except that it too is owned by Zuckerberg, who has not been the world's best role model or influence. So
yeah, that's very true.
But we digress. I do have a comment.
Let's talk about Mark Zuckerberg some more.
That's right. I support your notion of getting a better understanding of what community members want to be doing and what kind of support they need to be able to do that work. But I also want to point out that the customer is not always right. The customer and our particular customers, who are wonderful people, came here for a particular reason. For example, your effort to expand the scope to accessibility devices more generally is, I think, right on. And yet, most of the people came here because they saw some picture of a kid with a prosthetic and they don't really know the field. So I just want to encourage you to keep an eye out for the things that community members would want if we did things right, not just what the community members we have want, given who they are, how they came here, and how Jeremy and I have been doing this all this time.
And I know we'll talk about this in the interviews, Adam, but I'll tell you right now that over a period of quite a few years now, the overwhelmingly most common inquiry that I get is the one that we looked at earlier today.
Yep.
How do I find recipients? So it
Yep.
seems to me that the program you have going of being able to, collect devices, do some QA, ship them in bulk to a designated contact, get them into the hands of people that can actually use them, and ideally close the loop by getting some photos back of people with happy faces wearing those devices and get those back to the people that submitted them. That would be a hugely impactful.
I agree.
Aspect.
I think you're both absolutely right, John. I will say to your point really quickly, and this is why I'm creating the separate Wildmont account for the hub. I will be continuing to work as an outreach coordinator in addition to the time I'm putting in with Wildmont. And I'm going to do my best not to conflate those hours in my reporting. But that the outreach work that it's going to be hard to. I'm going to have to do some soul searching and decide which is which. But yeah, the looking for other avenues is, I think, hugely important to the ongoing relevance of the organization 10 years from now. Because I think that the technology will continue to change, and the healthcare landscape, especially in the states where I don't know if a plurality, but certainly a large percentage of our users are and our chapters are, will continue to shift with access to prosthetics devices and need for them changing. So being flexible and expanding the potential applications of 3D printing and whatever new additive technologies are, introduced to the market in the coming decade, I think that'll be really important.
Adam, as one quick side note, I just want to point out, that we have the Lumio platform if you need to do
Sure.
something kind of more formal and get input, but another kind of simplified mechanism is right in the post. Right in the hub, you have the ability to, let's see, where is it? Here, poll. See the poll tab here.
Yep.
So you can actually set up a poll, do multiple,
Exactly.
answers. So you can do this right within the hub and let people kind of choose their options and gather data that way.
Yes,
so
that's what I was referring to when I said I'd be dropping polls down. But
excellent.
Yes,
okay.
Thank you.
Yeah. And if you set up a new space, by the way, I think that's something that you have to enable under the modules option for the space. Okay. So you know about that. Great.
I've played around with it quite a bit.
Okay. Good deal.
But thank you. That's great. Yeah, beyond that, the only other thing we haven't mentioned here that I think is, well, two other things. One, they're kind of the same thing. Rehab engineering. So I am going to be expanding my push to reach out to, I know I keep banging this drum, and then this is another thing that hasn't really yielded a lot of outcome, but honestly, it's been more of a bandwidth issue on my end than a lack of interest. I don't have the hours in the day, or haven't had the hours in the day, to follow up on this. With Jason's help, though, and given his healthcare background and his own connections, we're going to start pushing into some of the major rehab centers and training institutions around the country to see how we could potentially explore partnerships with local maker groups and chapters to see if direct support for clinicians is an application this community could explore. So we've been really kind of end user focused. I think that there's a lot more kind of broad spectrum application for partnering with clinics and rehab hospitals and facilities that service a huge number of folks with a variety of diagnoses, rather than simply focusing on amputees. Which again is not to disparage anyone demo.
Sure.
But yeah, in terms of finding things for people to do, which is kind of priority number one, I think that is a really interesting avenue to be explored here.
Okay.
So yeah.
All right. So moving on, it looks like we don't have Tainara with us today, so we'll get an update next time, perhaps. The NIH 3D device catalog project does seem to be moving forward. As Sarah mentioned, Ian seems to be off the grid right now. I've sent some emails and also got an auto reply. So I don't know when he's back. He had been talking at one point about wanting to get an intern to help move this forward. John, do you know of anything ever coming of that?
I don't really.
Okay, so we're gonna have to find out what's up with that, because meanwhile, I had a new volunteer, Jet Manley, who reached out to me via private message in the hub. He's a student at Louisiana State University, and he's asked, hey, can I help get those devices added into there? And I thought it was a great opportunity to get that moving forward. It does look like someone named Jason Toffey has been busy adding devices. I don't know if that's somebody that Ian,
No, it
specifically.
is someone Ian is working with. I think that is indeed a summer intern.
Okay, so I'd love to get an update on that, but it sounds like there is another potential volunteer, and
Yeah.
he was, as far as I can tell, it's a free offer to help. So might be able to amplify the efforts of that intern if we take advantage of that. I sent a message over to Ian with his contact info. Haven't heard back yet, but
Great.
hopefully that'll be moving forward, because right now we're in a bit of limbo. We still have our device catalog on the hub, which eventually we're going to have to kind of redirect people over to NIH. I just don't think it's quite ready for that yet. They did get to update this top content, so all the old information and old outdated links are gone, replaced with new links that point to, among other things, the Launchpad, which we haven't really used up until now, but I am pointing people to it from here. So just keep that in mind, that that's something we might want to make sure stays fresh, or change this link if we decide to go in a different direction. But right now, that's where we're pointing people to, kind of how to get started, is that Launchpad. The other thing I was noticing in here is they did add in the filter options over here. I hope that at some point we'll have an opportunity to talk to them about more meaningful filters, because right now it's all about the kind of 3D printer, the kind of material, support material. I mean, really what we want to see is, by limb difference type, or assistive technology type, or task that they're, things like that, that are meaningful to help people find the designs that they're looking for. Maybe difficulty, how easy it is to make one of these, how much
Right.
assembly does it take, things like that. So I hope we'll be able to do something more custom on those filters. But for now, it is at least.
Jeremy, it's a great point. Have you communicated that to Ian?
I did in some past meeting. I don't know if that actually got communicated to the people that have the power to do something about that on the development team. But yeah, anyway, once he's back from his travels, I guess we'll find an opportunity to reconnect. It sounds like he's probably not going to be at July's new member education meetup. If anyone hears word that he is going to be at one of our upcoming meetings, let me know. Maybe I'll make an attempt to be there, just because it might be a chance to reconnect and get an update on this. Okay, so that's moving at some level, and I hope we can get Jet plugged in, because he seemed excited to help. We talked about distribution of e-NABLE devices. I just added some notes here about what Adam shared, and that's an exciting program. We also have this new matching platform that I've been really trying for quite a long time to get going, and we finally have a volunteer to help. Ajer Khan has recently moved to Canada, and he has a technology background. He works in cloud technologies, and works for a large company in that area, and he has a good friend with a limb difference, and was very anxious to get involved and have an impact. And when I showed him the potential website here that e-NABLE France built, and we talked about getting it set up more in a way that could serve as kind of a general e-NABLE home base. We talked about the intake form here. It's not going to let me get to it without logging in. Well, there we go. So we talked about an intake form and tailoring this more towards, instead of just requesting a hand or arm, being able to request different kinds of assistive technology and that sort of thing. And he was very excited. I've already gotten him plugged in with admin credentials on the back end, and we had a meeting to go through kind of the basics of what it would take to get this up and running. There's a couple of plugins that we're going to have to get activated, not expensive, as you can see here, about $170 between the two of them. When the time comes, we'll get that approved in here. And then it's going to be a matter of updating content throughout the site to kind of make it more of what we want to present as our face to the world, and then getting the intake form going, getting that map function working, so that we can, start to use that as a matching mechanism to match makers with people asking for devices. At that point, we will, of course, need multiple volunteers to actually perform that matching process, because it is going to be a manual process of saying, okay, I'm going to match with this maker and, go. So we're going to need to talk about a process for that, which maybe Adam, your team can help with. And then it becomes the work of translation, which, as I talked with Azure about, I think we can probably highly leverage AI for this, so it's really going to be a lot of copying and pasting once we have the site the way we want it in English. It's just going to be a matter of, using our AI translation tools to translate all that content into as many languages as possible. And then, of course, people that are, fluent in those languages can help us, tweak anywhere that it might have fallen short. But I think that'll get us, 90% of the way there. So our goal here is to have a website that could serve as kind of the new homepage, the first place people land to learn about e-NABLE, to get a clear sense of how they can get involved, where they can find what they need, how they can get help, etc. And then start basically building all of the SEO, authoritativeness towards that site, and then directing people to where they need to be from there. That's the goal. Do have a volunteer plugged in now, and I'm hoping we'll be able to start getting regular updates as that moves forward. But I was excited to see somebody willing to take that project on.
Great.
Anyone have any questions about where that's at or what we're doing there, or anything that I can communicate with him?
I just have an irresistible urge to say, Jeremy, thank you for all of this that you do. I know you're under great burden, but it's
Sure.
wonderful.
And we'll do what I can. By the way, I do want to mention that while I invited Azir to join these meetings, he does have a direct conflict at these times each week. So if that other meeting that he has is ever, not happening, he will join us. But otherwise, this time isn't a good one for him. So I will provide updates on his behalf as things move forward.
To that same point, just to throw out, Tainara is a clinician, and her schedule is not always set in stone. So she will always be trying to make these meetings. If she doesn't, it's because she has a patient. So
Sure.
Just a heads up.
Of course, yeah. Also tied in with what I just shared, Azir very much liked the idea of using Trello, and I've already invited him to the board that we have set up, Adam. He felt that would be a really good way to help tracking his progress and sharing updates on his work. So just know that we have another person that's already plugged in on that, and
that's great. Yeah,
and
Jason and I have been using Trello to track Wildmont projects, as well as we get a few things in flight. So it's been very useful. Well, kind of a mix of Trello and Discord, but yeah, it's been great.
Very good. Okay. I think I covered everything on the Azure situation before. It's about as good as it's going to get at this point. We have reduced our resource utilization to the point where our needs should be covered by the grant money, which is now properly applied to the account finally. Unfortunately, Microsoft refused to credit back to me the money from the last 2 years that were billed directly to me. So that's just the way it goes. But at least moving forward, they are billing that to the grant. And I worked with Evan to get the e-NABLE credit card plugged in there instead of mine, so that if there is any kind of overage charge, that would be billed to the e-NABLE fund, though I don't see any indication of that happening based on the current configuration. And that's about all I have here. I think that's timely. So rather than just go through what's become a disorganized agenda here, let me just kind of open it up for the time we have remaining to anybody here that has anything you'd like to talk about, if anything.
We have, just on the Wildmont front, a couple of other housekeeping things. We've had a couple of really interesting conversations with potential partner organizations, and that in conjunction with the discussions that I've been having with folks at Makers Making Change. I wanted to maybe just as like a teaser, float the concept of establishing some more some closer ties with like-minded organizations as a way to do some cross-promotional activities, some joint fundraising exercises. I know you're going to hear me say fundraising 1,000 times a meeting moving forward.
Right.
But Jason actually has a contact who has, I don't want to disclose anything because they haven't agreed to anything yet. But he met with him last night over drinks and dinner, and it could be really exciting stuff. I think that it's the kind of thing that could really put e-NABLE in a different kind of spotlight. So again, nothing set in stone, but I think that there are a lot of potentials there. And e-NABLE is the kind of organization that I think looks really good on, you know, the front of a web page, the top of an article about this kind of thing. So yeah, more on that to come, but I think that there
Great.
is there's a lot of potential there.
Great.
That's great.
Um,
Since you've asked, I'm impressed by the potential synergy between the outreach and expansion stuff that's very much on Adam's mind, and this notion that chapter leaders who are in general, but also chapter leaders who are teachers, could be given templates for what they can do. They're often real anchor tenants. And if they had those templates, and the templates included, for example, having their students present to other classes, it's a very powerful technique.
right.
And in addition to uncovering recipients, which we've just discussed, it's also really important for building the kinds of pro-social leaders that we're trying to develop.
And not just presentation templates, we actually have a sizable collection of community print materials that were designed as editable templates. So things like posters, flyers, things like that, that at this point need to be updated, but they're there as a starting point and could be updated and could be shared more visibly with the community. I have a whole folder of these things. They are linked in various places in the hub, but you might not be aware of them, Adam. So that's another thing that I could share with you, and you
Yeah.
team might be able to reinvigorate.
No, I think that's a great idea. And I think that in addition to kind of doing that sort of, makers teaching makers thing, I think that there's more synergy in how this can be expanded to wrap in other disciplines. You know that a lot of what I've been thinking about is trying to bring more clinicians into the fold. I think that if we took these, even high school groups, these younger chapters going into graduate programs and showing, medical students and physical
Right.
therapy and occupational therapy students and even chiropractors and like anybody, to say, hey, you can throw these kinds of easily accessible, cheap devices into your protocols, and you can partner with groups like ours to make bespoke devices for your patients that they don't have to pay out of pocket for because insurance doesn't cover it. I think that could be I don't know that there's like a great. I don't know. I actually I don't want to say that. I think that there is a lot of potential there. So.
Okay.
Well, since we seem to be at a bit of a lull in the discussion here, maybe we should just go ahead and wrap up and give ourselves 12 minutes back in our days.
Okie doke.
Okay.
Thanks, everyone. See you next time.
Thanks, everyone.